This is the Emisar DW4. This is a pretty hyped up and long awaited flashlight. This is basically the right angle headlamp slash worklight slash bent D4 that people have been waiting for a while now. So I'm going to be completely honest in this review. I wasn't originally planning on making a video about this light. It's basically a right angle D4 V2. And as far as like performance and functionality and whatnot, that's pretty much all you need to know. There's not like anything new here really. So I don't really care for right angle lights, and I just didn't really see the point in this one. But this was sent to me by Jackson Lee to see what I think, and I gotta be honest, after spending some time with it, it is a lot more compelling than I originally thought it would be. It's actually a very good light, which I guess is no surprise. Emisars are good lights. So what is the Emisar DW4? Well, it is literally a D4 V2 that is bent at a right angle. So physically, the battery tube, the tail cap are identical to the D4 V2, as well as the DT8. In fact, the only difference, there's this new tail cap design, which doesn't have a label on it anymore. It just says Emisar, so it doesn't say D4 or DW4 or anything. And there's a new lanyard hole, and that's it. These are totally interchangeable. The optic is identical. This does not have the FET+1 driver. That seems to be pretty much phased out at this point, but otherwise it does have the same options. So we had the linear plus FET driver, same as the Noctagon KR4, the dual channel linear driver, and the new boost driver option. This does have an illuminated side switch, similar to the linear D4 V2. Really the only major difference is that this now has a screw down retaining ring instead of a press fit retaining ring. As well as this bezel is a little more low profile. It's a screw down system as well. And the anti-reflective coating has also changed a bit. Hank has been listening to enthusiasts on Budget Light Forum. So instead of the old, really strong coating that was kind of purplish, it's now it's still a pretty strong coating, but it doesn't have that purplish hue anymore, which is supposed to provide a more neutral beam color. So it's cool that he's been listening to customers and he applied that. I do think that's cool. Otherwise, performance-wise, it's going to be the same as the D4 V2. Of course, it runs Anduril all the same. It's reflashable, etc. As you can see, it is bigger. So making this a right angle light has made it a fair bit longer, and it is heavier. The head is definitely heavier. But it feels very similar in the hand. I could pretty much just leave it there, to be honest. It's a right angle D4 V2. Let's talk about the performance of this guy here. So this is using 4 Nichia 519A LEDs in 4500K. Of course, it has a FET for turbo, and this is a Samsung 30Q that I have in here. When I tested it right at startup, I got just over 4,000 lumens, about 4,040 lumens. And repeated startup after that was a little bit less. So realistically, you're looking at like a 3,700, 3,800 lumen flashlight with these LEDs. I ran the runtime test at thermally calibrated default target of 45C. Total runtimes are about what you expect, about 3 hours or so, 200 minutes before it dies. It drops pretty fast and hard from turbo. So we go from 4,000 lumens all the way down to about 200 lumens over the first 40 seconds. So it's not actually, when you're using it, it's not that bad of a drop, but on the graph it looks pretty bad. But it climbs back up to around 400 lumens or so, and that'll run for the next like 5 minutes. It'll slowly drop down. The total runtime, you're going to get about 350 lumens or so. For a linear driver, it's pretty good. It's nothing special, but it's certainly not bad. It's just what you'd expect, really. Bear in mind that at least this week when I tested it, it was quite hot, so my ambient temperatures were a bit higher than normal, like 2 or 3 degrees, and maybe not quite as stable. Bearing that in mind, it still did pretty good. If you're getting a high CRI light at around 250, 300 lumens or so for that long, it's not bad, but it's nothing to write home about either. In terms of beam profile, of course, this is using the same Carclo. This is the 10622, sorry, quad optic. The 519As are a bit floodier. They're very similar to the LH351s. Pretty floody beam. Pretty good reach at the same time, though, with that output. So It's a very nice general purpose beam. In fact, this is a little bit of a cleaner beam than the SST20s are. So the SST20s, they have kind of this cartwheeling going on at the edge of the beam, which is not present with these domed emitters here. So we'll talk more about the 519As later, but beam profile is very good on this guy. But again, it's not different. So, okay, really though, what is this for? Like, why does this exist? A lot of people were looking at this and using this now, I think, as a headlamp. Jackson and Hank have both said it's not really a headlamp, even though they do sell it with a headlamp, with a headband and everything, and I'm inclined to agree. I don't actually think this is that great as a headlamp. It is very good as a sort of portable right angle work light or EDC. Some people like to EDC these types of lights. Being a right angle, it's a lot easier to just set this down and aim it, you know, wherever you want. This also has the magnetic tail cap, of course, so it's very versatile. It's very just easy to get it to go where you want to illuminate an area compared to dealing with this thing kind of rolling around and whatever. It's especially nice because you can stick this on a surface sideways and aim it like that. So it's just an ergonomic thing. A lot of people really like these right angle designs, and this is a D4V2 that's a right angle. What more could you ask for, right? So as a work light of sorts, this is really good. As a headlamp, though, there's a couple of problems with this. The main one is, for one, obviously, it's off-center, which is not the end of the world. I talked about this with my Army Tech review. This is the Army Tech Wizard C2, and this is a kind of a similar design. And having this off-center design, it's fine if it's balanced. You know, with a floody beam, you don't really notice that the light is coming off to the side. But it's still not my favorite. I do prefer more of like a dedicated headlamp design like this. This is just a Cyan Sky headlamp. This is nice because it actually sits on the head much more nicely. This is not very well balanced. You can definitely tell that it's on the head and it kind of wants to fall to one side. The balance point is about here. So this big heavy head just doesn't sit very well in the head strap for me. So that's one issue. The other issue is the button. Well, actually, it's the whole ergonomics of the light. So this is a very smooth light in the hand, which makes it feel very nice. It's really nice to hold. But because this button here is a bit recessed, it's actually kind of hard to work with, comparatively speaking, especially when it's in the headband. So when it's up on your head like this, you kind of have to like reach up and press in there, and like it's not bad, but it's just not very good either. And one of the issues is, as you can see, this front doesn't protrude very much, and it's all just smooth. So you don't really have much to grip against when you're trying to press the button, and then your fingers kind of come up against the optic there. So it's really not ideal. Compared to, here's another headlamp. This is the Workhos HD15. And as you can see, it has this rectangular section up here, right? And even though that looks very small, it is small. When it's on the head, I find that gives you way more grip to actually press the button. I find this actually a lot more easy to just work with and press this button with this more grip up here as well as the more protruding button. This is just a better headlamp design, in my opinion. So again, it's not like this is horrible or anything, but it's just not ideal. I do wish this button protruded a little bit more, and I actually wish the front protruded a little bit more so there was just more grip. That being said, I do like the fact that the button is at the end of the head here. It does make it really just quick and easy to find in the dark. And overall, you know, working with it, it is an Anduril light, so there's a lot of clicks that are needed, and it's not bad overall. It's fine, but definitely not as nice as the D4, just ergonomically, in my opinion. So adding to that, it did come with this headband here. This is just a silicone rubbery thing up here with the two little bands. This is a very standard design that you get with cheap headlamps. And it's comfortable enough because it's not like a hard piece of metal up against your head or anything. But it really is a pain to get the light in and out of here. This is not a nice quick detach system. It's just fine. It's whatever. I don't know. I do like that this headband has a third strap for carrying it for extra support on the head. But it's just not a very good headlamp experience. Finally, I also got the new deep carry clip. with this light, and I have it on my D4 V2 here. So this is a marked improvement over the older standard clip here. This was not very deep carry. It left a fair bit sticking out of your pocket, and this new one has a lot more more of a lip there, or ramp on the clip, so it's easier to just slide it into a pocket. It also looks nicer. So this is what you'll get if you buy the pocket clip with the DW4 now, and I do prefer this design. It's an upgrade. Not specific to the DW4 here are the Nichia 519As. These are super hyped up, these LEDs. And I gotta say, the hype is definitely deserved because these are really good LEDs. 4500K on these, CRI. I don't know exactly, actually, but they're very high. Very natural color rendition. Of course, they're bright, and they have a nice neutral tint. So they're not quite as rosy as the 219Bs, but they're more natural looking, in my opinion. I find the 219Bs are a little too pinkish sometimes. This is more like, it kind of reminds me of the B35AM, but a little pinker than that. So it's just a really nice, pleasant, natural color. These LEDs pretty much do it all. They're bright. They have a good beam pattern. There's no tint shift. They're high CRI. They come in a variety of different temperatures. You can even de-dome them from extra throw. They're really good. So for this light, for the DW4, I pretty much just think you should get the 519As. They're that good. They're really good. As far as drivers are concerned, as a kind of a right angle work light, I do like the linear driver option because you have the FET power. So it's not as efficient. It's not going to run as long, but it is super bright. 4,000 lumens is a lot of light out of such a small little thing like this. So I really like that. And it's the cheapest option. So definitely still a good option in my opinion. And finally, the linear driver does have the lowest moonlight modes like this. So to be able to go from this super low to super high output is pretty awesome. The 2-channel option is, I'm not super big on the 2-channel, but I think it would be really cool to have a tint ramping one of these. So like a 519A and like 3000K and like a 5600 or something like that would be a really cool option to have for a work light or a headlamp. And then the boost driver. So if you're gonna run this as a headlamp, I definitely recommend the boost driver. You'll get something like half the output, 2,000 something 100 lumens, but you'll get significantly more efficiency. So it'll be less hot on your head. You'll get more sustained output, better run times. It's like $15 extra to get the boost driver. If you're going for a headlamp, or just, I don't know, if you're taking this seriously and you actually want a tool instead of a toy, you should get the boost driver. Really cool that Hank is now offering that in these lights. Really good options. Lots of configurability. Just gotta love that about these flashlights. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to say about it, right? What do I think of the DW4 overall? Same thing I thought about the D4, but I like it probably a little less than the D4, all things considered. But it's really, really nice to have this option. It is a nice light. I enjoy using it. And I think if this is what you want, if you want a right angle andro light, really, this is pretty much the go-to recommendation. I mean, there's not a lot of competition, so it just kind of wins by default. There's the Fireflies lights that are options to look at, but those are 21,700, so they're not really, I don't think they're really viable as headlamps. And this is like 50 bucks. Depends on how you configure it, but it's a great value as always. So it is a good light. I do like it, and I do recommend it if you want a right angle. If you're looking for like a dual channel headlamp, but you're not quite sure if you want to commit to, because $50 is, not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but some people, it's still too much to spend on a flashlight when you have things like the Workhos HD15s. This is a light I'm going to review. This is like 30 bucks, dual channel, so there's a LH351D and an SSD20. Very simple, easy to use, good ergonomics, USB-C charging port built in. I think for a cheap dual channel headlamp, this is actually a really good light, and it's good enough that I might point you towards considering this instead of this. Just a thought. If you're looking at the boost driver version, you'll be comparing it functionally to like the Armitech Wizard and the Zebra Light, whatever alphabet soup they have there, they call it. This is like a $90 flashlight. I think the Zebra Lights are like $80, $90 as well. So 50 plus $15. This is, I would say, a better value, but it is going to be less durable, so that's definitely something to consider. But you get more LED options, you do get Anduril, and you do get auxiliaries. I love auxiliaries. So it's a potential alternative to a more serious headlamp like this. But if you really are like, I don't know, I think there's still good reason, like if you really need a headlamp and you don't want to just play with it, I don't think the DW4 is good enough to out something like this. But you know what you need, you know what you want. So hopefully this video was somewhat helpful. It was very simple, kind of rambly. Hope it's not too long. And I hope you somewhat enjoyed it. So thanks to Jackson Lee for sending this to me. He didn't pay me for this review or anything. I didn't even really ask him for this, though. He just sent it to me, pretty much. So go check out his site. Go check out internationaloutdoor.com. The new Emisar D1 V2 also just came out, so I guess I'll have to look at that too. I am pretty excited for that. If you have any questions, just let me know. And yeah, this video is too long now.